All right, so as you guys saw in the email, this class, I call it listing mastery. I'm kind of referring to it as listing success. The email said listing mastery, but it's important that you guys know that you can't master yourself you can't master the listing process without kind of including everything from the lead generation to the prospecting to the appointment to what you do after you get the appointment and you're actually trying to close the business. So this is kind of step one in listing success. You need to at least be very comfortable and very proficient at the appointment itself. And what I'm going to teach you guys today is some of the tools and techniques that I worked on and crafted, and some I perfected, some I'm still in the process of perfecting over the course of about 18 years in real estate. And over the course of, I'm going to take a wild guess that I've probably listed maybe 800 houses. It's a wild guess. Might be less, might be more. If anyone has access to my data and you see that it's only 500, don't call me out. I'm just guessing. Okay. All right. So what we want to do is talk about what you're doing on that listing appointment. And as we get into this, I want to start this class like I do a lot of the classes and tell you guys what we are not going to cover here. So what we're not going to cover, this stuff, if you need help with this, you should let me know separately, but we're not going to cover how you need to price a listing. So I'm assuming here that everyone kind of knows how to run their comps, run your CMAs if you like CMAs, and ultimately know you already know or have someone that can help you price your listings. And just a quick reminder, please mute yourself out if you're not already muted. All right, we're not going to cover how to complete a listing agreement. So paperwork is my my nemesis. It's not necessarily a weakness. I just hate it. All right, so we're not going to go over how to fill your listing paperwork out. We're not going to talk about how to negotiate with the buyer's agent today. This is really all about how to negotiate and secure your listings. You should know how to prepare your listing or have someone in your life that can help you prepare the listing and properly expose it to the market. All right. Now, what are we going to cover? We're going to talk about how to avoid seller objections. All right. And I'm using the word avoid here. It's much better to avoid something than to handle it. Sellers often will hit you with an objection, and we as agents or as salespeople, we think that it's our job to handle that objection. And in handling it, we often completely destroy our rapport. So what we want to know is what those potential objections are before the appointment and during the appointment, and go ahead and handle those before they've been vocalized by the seller. It definitely keeps you in rapport a lot longer and keeps things from popping up. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to avoid those seller objections, how to establish yourself as an expert if you aren't already an expert in the mind of the consumer that you're talking with. Ultimately, we also want to educate our seller because we and our sellers are a team. And if they're not educated, they're constantly going to be hitting us with objections and different things that we're not really prepared for. So we're going to talk about educating your seller, how to engage them as part of the team. I touched on that just a second ago.
That motel is still there.
How to engage them as a part of your team, and how to exert influence over the seller's decisions and timing without them knowing. Some of you know me better than others. A lot of you that know me would probably recognize that I'm not a super confrontational and aggressive guy. I can think back to one of the first listing appointments I ever ran by myself was after a year of being a mentee of my broker. And over that year, we went on more than 50 listing appointments. Every single week, we were going on a minimum of one listing appointment. And I would just go and shadow, and I would be the guy that made sure that all the promises that my mentor was making, all those promises got fulfilled. So I was listening, I was watching, I was evaluating his listing techniques, and he was a very aggressive aggressive salesperson. He was the type that would present to you and then immediately pull out a blue pen and say, all I need you to do is sign the listing agreement that I put in front of you. So he would do those things. And over the course of a year and more than 50 listing appointments, I watched this and I learned his process verbatim. I could repeat it in my sleep. The very first listing appointment I went on by myself, I show up to the appointment. I did everything exactly the same way that he did. I pulled out a blue pen, slid paperwork in front of them, handed them the pen and said, I just need you to sign right here and we'll get started. And they said, get the hell out of my house. They told me to get out. So that should tell you guys that my specific personality type isn't kind of the bulldog personality that's going to go in and people are going to just listen to what I say because I'm that dominant. It's not me. It might be some of you, and some of you may use aggressive techniques like that. I don't. I generally am going to teach you an influential way of manipulating. Think of manipulating or influencing in a positive way. The difference between manipulation and influence is manipulation is really taking advantage of people and selling them on something that they don't need, where influence, if you're doing it ethically, is selling someone on something that they do need, and you know that it's your job to sell them because you're going to do the best job. So we want to exert influence over the seller's decisions and timing. Right. Forgive me, guys. I have to say it one more time, probably a few more times. We're getting some folks that are jumping in late. You guys are coming in unmuted. Not your fault. You guys didn't know. Please just mute yourself because we're getting a lot of background noise. All right. So this is what we're going to be covering today. Right. Prior to the listing appointment, it's really important that everybody have a list of pre-appointment questions, because the knowledge that you go into an appointment with is really going to have a massive sway over whether you get that business or not. There's nothing worse than walking into an appointment blind, not knowing the seller's motivations, not knowing what they're looking for in an agent, not knowing what they're looking for in an offer, and you start presenting to things that aren't relevant to them. So before you get to that appointment, the information that you gather about the seller is absolutely vital. And this is going to be where I actually share my first document with you guys. Those of you who are with all the leads and who also work probate business, this is going to look familiar to you. If you don't have my probate questionnaire, just ask me separately outside of this class. But what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to drop a shared PDF into the chat that shows you guys a list of the questions that I like to ask or have answered before I go on that appointment. All right, so if everyone would look in the chat right now, I just put a PDF into chat, and I'm actually, you go ahead and download it. I'm gonna also open this up and let you guys see what I like to do. In a perfect world, or in my past offices when I was running a team, I would have just a huge stack of these, and they were always on a green sheet. So each piece of paper was green, and we would call it the seller green sheet. And if it wasn't filled out at least 50%, then we wouldn't accept that appointment. We made whoever set the appointment call the client back, call the potential client back, and get some extra information. All right, so everyone should be able to see my screen here with this is actually I left this as the probate interview sheet, probate seller interview sheet. This is not probate. I'll fix this and send it out in an email. I changed everything except for the name. All right, so this is your seller interview sheet. You can use this for probate. You can use this for anyone, really any type of listing lead. Although my actual probate interview sheet is slightly different, and I will send this to you guys after the fact. So Carol, you just asked if I would email you a copy. If you'll email me with a reminder, anyone that wants me to send them something specifically, email me. I'll get a lot of requests through this and I don't want to miss it. So if you need an extra copy of something, email me at bruce@alltheleads.com and just let me know what you're looking for and I'll get it to you that way. So this interview sheet's just a single page. If I were you, I'd print this out and have it a stack of these handy as you start to get more and more listing appointments. Just have a bunch of these handy and just realize that you do not go linearly. You don't take these questions in a linear format. You let the conversation go where it is and you ask kind of follow-up questions. But in a perfect world, I would get at least 50% of the questions here answered. And I've kind of categorized these according to motivation, the family of the person that you're talking with at the moment about selling. So who are the other decision makers? Are they interested in selling? We've broken it down into questions surrounding the property and the neighborhood characteristics, the mortgage information, any real estate needs that person has. So these would be specific needs related not only to the listing, but where they're going to go and what they're planning to do after they sell. These are all really important things to understand. And I'm not going to go down the path of how you use these to identify pain points and go down what we call a pain funnel today. But once you have enough information and you understand someone's motivations and needs of where they're going, it's really easy to exert influence and build a custom listing approach that matches their needs. Okay, so this is just going to help. And I'm going to encourage you guys, if you are setting listing appointments, even if it's with your sphere of influence and people that you know, I would fill as much of this out as possible and add it to your file. Now, be aware that it makes for a really awkward conversation if I were to pick on James Chen and tell James to unmute himself. If I say, hey, James, what is your reason for selling? And is your house owner occupied? Yes or no? And why are you selling? Okay, so these things just get really awkward when you feel like you have to work question by question. So I encourage you guys to just let the conversation flow. And as it flows, fill in the blanks. So you're going to bounce around this form leading into the appointment. Right. Some of the most important questions that really you almost have to answer when you lead into an appointment like this is, where do they plan to go? Are they also buying whenever they sell? Are they buying with you? There's a lot of unrealized business out there because we don't ask these questions. We also need to know if they already have another buyer agent that they want to work with. We need to know what they think about their existing neighborhood. Are they selling because they hate their neighborhood? Any of these things can really benefit you when you get into the appointment. I'm going to look for the person that came in. If you're in here, you just joined, please mute yourself if you can hear me. All right. So this questionnaire is something that I want you guys to begin to use. So pre-appointment questions that are highly important that you use before you get to the house. I want you to clearly identify selling motivation. This should be done with multiple questions. You need to know what they think about their neighborhood. You need to know if there's a neighbor that they don't like, not because this means that they're going to sell faster than they would have otherwise, but it really helps you hone that approach. So you need to know multiple selling motivation factors and ask those questions. You need to identify and prepare for any pain points that you uncover, right? Getting these questions will help you avoid family conflict and the distraction that comes with that conflict. This distraction and conflict is really important. How many of you have been on a listing appointment before where you walked in and only in the appointment discovered that the person that you're working with or the family that you're working with, one of them had no idea that the spouse was thinking about selling? If it's just me, then you guys should probably not be listening to me in this class. But that's happened to me multiple times where I've shown up thinking that I had an amazing appointment and realized that one of the decision makers didn't know about the appointment or wasn't on board with selling. So uncovering these with the proper questions is vital. It helps you uncover future objections. One of the questions that I like to ask in my pre-appointment questionnaire when I'm on the phone is, give me 2 to 4 things that are the most important to you in the realtor that you choose. Give me 2 to 4 items that are most important to you in the realtor that you choose. How many of you think it would be important to know if someone wanted the lowest commission rate? It's important to know before you go on that appointment. How many of you think it's important to know if somebody is only concerned with marketing and promotion of their property? If that's like their only thing, that's absolutely vital that you would know that that's their biggest thing. You can focus your presentation and your pitch only on marketing if you know about these. So I want you guys asking, what are the 2 to 4 most important things in the agent that you choose? All right, and you're going to uncover a lot of really valuable pieces of information that you can use while you're on the appointment. And then we also want to uncover any additional real estate and referral needs. Okay, identify hidden costs and establish an accurate seller net. A lot of sellers, and I was just dealing with a seller last night that had no idea that the sale price wasn't going to be his net. And I've had that before. Day before closing, I had a seller call me one day and she said, "Hey, I don't understand why I'm getting 180,000 out of my house. I thought I was getting 200,000 out of it." And that was the sale price. I had to explain to a very angry seller that their sale price wasn't going to be their net in their pocket when they closed. So we need to understand what people's expectations are so that we can pitch to it when we get to that appointment. All right. So we have a really good understanding of where we are, what we're walking into, what the expectations are of the seller that we're dealing with. And now we want to make a splash when we get to the appointment. Right. And as I get into some of my techniques, I'm kind of curious if any of you have any techniques that you use to make a powerful entrance or a splash when you get into the appointment. If you do, somebody raise your hand, or anyone that does, raise your hand. I'll call on you after I kind of present what I do when I go on the appointment. Admittedly, I got a piece of this from a coaching organization that I used to coach for, Tim and Julie Harris, if anyone knows them. I give credit where credit's due. I absolutely loved this, and I'd never used it before coaching. So they say that you walk in the house and you set the tone immediately. You walk in, you bend over, you take your shoes off, and you look up at them almost like it's an afterthought. You go, "Oh, I forgot." I just want you to know really quickly that I am fully committed to helping you net the most with the easiest process that you've ever experienced or thought that you would experience in a real estate listing. I'm fully committed to that process. Now, the rest of this conversation can be casual, but I just want you to know how committed I am to getting you the most money with the easiest amount, the easiest effort and the lowest amount of time. Okay. I'm going to encourage you guys to come up with kind of a powerful statement like that once you walk into the door, no matter how comfortable you are with the person, some of you are going to be really, really comfortable with with friends that you're going to list. And I want you to kind of remove your friend hat when you go in the appointment, even if it's a friend, and put on that professional's hat. Even if you're only going to take the pro's hat off and put your friend's hat back on afterward, you need to establish power and influence immediately as soon as you walk in that house. So the powerful entrance and that statement that you use is vital. And as we take a powerful entrance, I want you guys to know that it's okay to take the lead, right? If I can take the lead as a nice guy and someone that doesn't like conflict and doesn't like to rock the boat, you can take the lead. Some of you are just going to have to become a little bit better at acting. Others of you are already extremely natural leaders and you have no problem walking in with authority. But if you have, you're slightly more timid, or you don't like taking charge, you don't like rocking the boat, I want you guys to learn this and learn how to act it out. It's going to take a little bit of practice, a little bit of role play. The good news is no matter what your personality is like, with a little bit of practice, you can be an amazing leader. Even if you feel like you're acting, no one is going to know the difference. Okay, so I want you guys to take the lead, and it really all starts with that power statement right as you've walked in the door. Next thing that you want to do is set that professional tone. Okay, so we take that friend hat off if you're with someone in your sphere of influence, and you put the professional's hat on. You need to set a professional tone. There's going to be more than enough time to be casual as you go through the process. Okay, so right out of the gate, set a professional tone. Next is we want to identify the decision maker. All right. How many of you have spent time presenting and trying to sell and pitch someone that it turned out in the listing appointment wasn't even really the person that made the decisions for the family? Anyone think of a experience like that where you spent your time talking to the person that maybe you were the most comfortable with, but not the real decision maker? So the way that I do this in identifying the decision maker is I say, hey, before we sit down and go through the listing process, I'd like someone to show me around the house. Who wants to do that? 90% of the time, the person that steps up is going to be the decision maker. And now you know who you need to spend about 75% of your energy focused on. So we don't know who the decision maker is until we get to this point and we start to fish to see who's that dominant person that seems to carry most of the decisions. And I find that whoever volunteers to show me around the house is typically the decision maker. All right, now after the tour, and we're gonna go through steps of the house tour here in just a minute, but after the tour, what I'll do is I'll go back to taking the lead. I always remember I'm taking the lead. And I will dictate to someone where we're going to go through that listing presentation. All right. I've been in dozens of living rooms where they say, here, sit on this couch here. Okay, sit on the couch. I'll have one person sitting beside me and another person sitting across the room. And here I am trying to go through a PowerPoint or a listing book or go through comps or something like that. And it's just awkward because I'm turning here to talk to this person and turning over here to talk to that person. And I'm looking across the room and I'm having to stand up and walk to the other person. And it just makes it really awkward. So don't let them take the lead. This is one of the most important things that you can do, even if you're a relatively amiable or passive person. You've got to take the lead. So the way that I do this is once I've identified the decision maker, I'll look at that person and I'll say, let's go to the kitchen table or the dining room table. Always you should be at a dining room or a kitchen table. And then I'll tell them where to sit. So I am right-handed, by the way. If you're left-handed, you could do different. This is just a really subtle psychological tip that gives you a little bit of a leg up. It's not like the end all be all, but I like to sit the decision maker at the end of the table on my dominant side, the side that I'm most dominant, which is my right-hand side. And then I like to sit the person that's slightly more passive in that decision role across from me. So that way I'm looking directly at the person that's passive, and I'm looking to my dominant side at the person that's the ultimate decision maker. This does a couple of things. Number one is it shows them that you know what you're doing, and the more assertive you can be, the more comfortable they're going to be with you taking charge of their home selling process. The other thing that it does is it keeps them at this nice, easy distance from you. It's really awkward and uncomfortable when you have two people facing directly at you, and you're almost like in this adversarial role subconsciously because both people are facing against you. I like to have one person that it feels more like we're on the same side. And it just makes it kind of a comfortable, easy presentation if you get them on the right, in the right spots on the table. Okay. All right. So you're going to take that decision maker, you're going to direct them to sit on your right-hand side or your left if you're left-handed, and at the end of the table. And the person that is slightly more submissive or passive in that decision process that we speculate is going to be sitting across from you. All right. And then we're going to, throughout the process, include some trial closes. And this is where you guys are going to start to get into some notes. All right. So let's go back here to identifying the decision maker and talk a little bit about what that property tour needs to look like. So we walk in, we make our power statement, we take the lead, and then we say, hey, before we get started, and I show you what I can do. All right. And I never like to use the word presentation in this. Before we get started, and I show you what I can do. Would someone volunteer to give me a home tour? And I don't care how you use that, how you phrase that, but would someone volunteer to give you a home tour is kind of the way that I would use that today. I'll follow the person that volunteers. And as we get a couple of steps into the house, I say, oh, I almost forgot. Do you mind if I record some of this home tour? I'd like to use it. I'd like to use it when I put your listing together. So do you mind if I record some of this home tour? I'd like to use it when I put your listing together. All right, let me get some volunteers here. What are some of the reasons that that question is so powerful?
It's an assumptive close.
Yep. It's an amazing assumptive close. What else does it do aside? So what does an assumptive close do? It does a couple of things.
In their mind, it establishes that you're going to get the listing.
Yep. Yep. What else can it do?
It makes them think into the future of once the house is up for sale, and they're already like you're putting them into that spot where they've already signed the paperwork.
Yep. Yep. What else can it do?
Can you hear me?
I got you, Bill.
I think it also, it pretty much lets them know that you're not there to hang out.
Yep.
You're there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're there for a purpose, and you plan on executing that. You plan on getting the listing and selling that house.
Yep.
You know,
absolutely. What else, Richard?
It distinguishes you from the others in case someone is behind you or in front of you.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Sherry said it shows professionalism. Absolutely correct. There's something, everything that you guys are giving me is kind of all in the same vein. And there's another answer for using this assumptive close that I'm looking for that is in a completely different vein from what the answers I'm getting are, and all very, very good answers. They're 100% accurate, but there's another reason why I like to use that assumptive close early in the process. And I'm going to give one more person a chance to come up with it. Anybody? All right, you guys get to look at my bald spot for a second. It identifies, and hopefully everyone can see that, it identifies if you have any problems. It identifies if you have any problems. Wouldn't it be great to know if a family or someone wasn't planning to list with you today, right up front, rather than get all the way to the end of a presentation and an appointment and try to close them and realize that they're unclosable. And we've all been on those appointments. And if you haven't been on those appointments with an unclosable person, then you probably will at some point in the future. There are certain people that just flat out aren't going to make a decision on the process. And we want to use trial and assumptive closes early and often to figure out where those problems might be. I've used this particular trial close. Hey, do you mind if I videotape the tour? I'm going to use this information when I put your listing in. I've used that in the beginning of appointments before that I thought were a slam dunk, only to get this answer. Yes, you can videotape it, but we're not signing today. We still have to do another meeting. We still have to interview someone else. And I didn't know that. But using that trial close revealed that to me early in the appointment, and early enough for me to adjust my game plan to get that listing at the end of the day. All right, so trial closes aren't only about professionalism. They aren't only about subconsciously influencing someone to list. Sometimes they're about just strictly identifying the potential challenge that you might face at the end of the appointment and giving you an opportunity to adjust your approach to match that challenge. So I want you guys using trial closes multiple times. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of other trial closes that I often use on listing appointments, because we want to use multiple closes. Okay. So when you list, here's another one. When you list, would you want the sign up on the side street and the front street, or do you just want one or the other? That might sound like a silly question. So one of my best clients of all time was a doctor. I met him at an open house. He told me that he'd been interviewing agents and wanted one more person to come out and interview. We didn't know each other well. I asked him some questions. I kind of uncovered the fact that he was friends with a couple of agents, that he'd met with one of the dominant teams in my area. And I was new to the area at the point. So just from kind of a credibility standpoint, I was going in really low in the process. And I was trial closing this guy throughout about the first half of the appointment. And we were really just touring the house, and he lived on a golf course. And I asked him, I said, hey, when you list, do you want a sign in the front yard, or do you want me to also include a sign in the backyard as well on the golf course? I knew the answer. We all know the answer to that. They're going to want as much exposure as they can. So the answer is going to be put it on the golf course and in the front yard. So I asked him in that way, and this guy that had been resisting, all of a sudden put his head down in defeat because he was trying to hold me off. And he said, you can put a sign in the golf course. And I knew at that point that I didn't even have to go through my pitch. It was my business, because I kept asking trial closes until I got the guy to say, you can do this. And he said, you can put a sign on the golf course too. And I knew that I had the business at that point. So we're going to include as many trial closes as possible. Other closes would be, do you want me to send a professional organizer in to help you organize the house? Do you want to use my stager before we list the house? Okay, just asking questions. Do you want to take a couple of days to get ready for professional photos, or should I have my photographer out tomorrow? So we ask these questions that all lead them to give us answers, to give us proper answers. So this is recorded. So if you didn't write those down, this is all good, but it all starts.
I was told there's a leak at the equipment, so that's what I'm here for.
All right, guys, hold on. Please mute yourself. Okay, so it all starts with that very first trial close of, do you mind if I video this tour so that I can use it when I put your listing in later? All right, absolutely vital trial close. All right, and then we want to establish some expected appointment results through that tour, so that everybody is on the same page with what we can do later. All right. So when we get to the end of the appointment, there's a couple of things that are options that we have. And the first option is going to be, I decide that I don't want to work with that seller. Has anyone ever gone on a listing appointment and you've decided that you didn't want to work with the client? Yeah. Has anyone gone on a listing appointment, you've decided that you didn't want to work with the client, and then you still worked with the client? Yeah. How'd that work out? Winston's shaking his head. How'd that work out for you?
I wish I would have denied it up front and not dealt with the hassle.
Yeah. Did you end up working with the person?
Yeah, I did, but there's an old saying in the business I learned long ago, and I didn't apply it to my own logic, that it's the ones that bug you the most that pay you the least. I would have been better off just walking away.
Yep. So I want everyone to hear that, what Winston just said, the ones that bug you the most pay you the least. And there's certainly some exceptions to that, but I've listed multiple houses before with people that my gut told me, I don't want this business. And inevitably, what do I typically do? I end up firing the client. Things blow up because your gut really doesn't lie. Okay. Ted, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. It's very true. It just happened about 2 days ago. It seemed like they were great clients, just wonderful. Then all of a sudden they went into this commission discounting conversation and using me to saying that they're now bringing in another guy that's in the subdivision. And another thing before that conversation, they wanted these referrals. A painter, the tile and grout cleaner. And I was just thinking, these folks are, they're just cutting me to the bone. And I do not want the same thing to happen to my preferred vendors. So I just don't want to go back to them. And I have that gut feeling, and I'm not going back. And that's almost 800,000 in business, and I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it.
There's times it's not worth it. Every time, the worst experience that I had was with a lady in a new market that I just opened up to. It happened to be a market that was really, really tough. And very first person that I dealt with, I went on the listing appointment. It was a 4-hour listing appointment. And I can talk. I can drag an appointment out. I see a couple of you on this call, no names, who, when we get together, we'll talk for 2 to 3 hours, but a 4-hour listing appointment is insane. I think it was a little over a 4-hour listing appointment, and everything in me was screaming, this is going to be a nightmare. But I saw those commission dollars and I decided to list it. And I proceeded to get calls after 11 p.m. for 2 weeks straight. I called the client. I fired her, told her it wasn't going to work. She called me back a few days later and promised to do better. Alarm bells going off. She's not going to do better. She did better for 3 days, and I fired the same client twice. Because sometimes we just recognize that a listing is not worth it no matter what the dollar sign looks like at the end of the day. Okay. And if you don't know what how empowering it is to be able to walk away from business, do more business and get there. It's really empowering to be able to walk away from business that you don't want, no matter what the check at the end of the day might be. So as we kind of go move along into this is still in the entrance point, and we haven't even gotten into our presentation, which the rest of today is going to cover the actual presentation itself. But we want to establish expected appointment results right up front during either before or during that tour, before we get into our actual presentation. Okay. So what are some of the other results that we could establish with the person before we dive into the presentation? So number one, I might say no to you. What's another potential result of our appointment?
Well, I think this is Yolanda Isham. I think that just seeing how flexible the seller is going to be with cooperating with reasonable price adjustments if they are needed. Sometimes we may list a property that is not right where the seller needs, but give you a little bit of room to negotiate. But if the seller wants to be way over market value and is not going to be willing to do reasonable price adjustments, I don't even recommend taking listings if the seller's not being realistic about expectations on price. But I think that they need to be reasonable with, the results and what they're going to get based on what they're doing. And that goes back to what you were talking about regarding taking the lead and not allowing the seller to tell you how to do your job. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we take the lead and we identify where that potential problem is going to be. And if we do identify that that's a problem, we say no.
Right.
And this is the way that it sounds when I present it to the client. Hey, at the end of this meeting, there are really about 4 or 5 possible outcomes that we could see. And I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with those 4 or 5, however many outcomes you come up with. I want to make sure that we're on the same page with those outcomes. So number 1, Yolana, sorry.
Yes.
I might decide that I can't help you with the listing. And I just want to let you know that if I decide that, there won't be any hard feelings. Is that fair?
Right.
Okay.
And I tell my clients that as well, because I think that people have to keep in mind on an appointment, your client is interviewing to pick you, but you're also interviewing them for you to pick them too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%. Okay. What else is a possible outcome of the appointment? Anybody? So if we can say no, can they say no?
Too. Yes.
Yep. You say no. All right. This is really powerful, guys. What I'm showing you here before we've gone into a presentation will save you a lot of heartache with that person that just wants to blow you off. It's going to save you a lot of heartache with people that say, oh, let us think about it tonight. And then you never hear from them again. Okay. So we go in, we say there's a couple of things that we could do. Number 1 is I might decide that I'm not the right agent to help you. And I want you to be okay with that. Okay. The second possible outcome of our appointment is you might decide that I'm not the person that can get you what you need and want. And I want you to know that I'm okay with that. Right. The third outcome, somebody give me a third. What else could happen on that appointment? Don't be shy.
Well, we take some time to think about this.
That might be something that they think that they can do, but that's not an option. All right. They might be planning on taking some time to think about it, but we're not going to give them that option.
You could get the listing.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yes, you can actually get the listing.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to put that as a sloppy number 4. Is a list today. All right. I'm looking for a number 3. Anybody?
A referral?
Yeah.
Referral?
The same thing.
Yeah, referral, good answer. Not typically one that I present. Good answer. I'm not generally going to propose that until one of us has decided it's a no. So that's kind of like a 1A or a 2 or a 2B or a 1B or a 2B. Okay. All right. There's one more possible thing that we should be okay with in the appointment, and it's not.
Decide not to list.
Think about it. So that's going to be you say no, or you that kind of fits under
with interviewing other agents.
We don't want them interviewing other agents, but it's possible that they will. That's not something that we give them as an option.
Right.
Okay.
They're going to do it themselves.
Going to do it themselves. That's something that could happen, but we're not going to present it as an option. So remember, we're controlling with our powerful entrance. We're controlling all the scenarios. They feel we're presenting choices that they feel like they have choices, but they don't have all the choices. And so you guys are giving me a lot of really good answers, mainly because if they have complete control over the decision process, these answers you're giving me are all decisions that they could choose. We don't want to give them the control to choose those options, though. So our third option is a second appointment. So our third option is, hey, sometimes there's something that you need from me that I can't give you today, or something that I need from you that you can't give me today. And we might decide to set a follow-up appointment to get that information later in the week. All right, so before I sit down at the table and I go through my presentation, I say, hey, do you mind if we briefly talk about some of the ground rules and some of the things, some of the possible outcomes of this appointment? And they're always going to say yes. And I say, okay, I'm going to kind of have some questions for you about what you're looking for. Those of you, if you've ever taken any Sandler training, you're going to notice some Sandler-esque approaches here. So I'm going to have a couple of questions for you and your needs. I'm sure you're going to have a few questions for me. I'm going to show you what I typically do to help sellers. And then at the end of today, we're going to make one of 4 decisions. We're going to either make the decision that I'm just not the best agent for you, in which case I'm going to be very comfortable telling you, hey, you might want to go a different direction. I'd like you to be comfortable telling me if you want to go a different direction as well. Is that fair? Everybody says yes to this. So those are options 1 and 2. Option 3 is maybe there's a couple of answers that you're not able to give me today, or I'm not able to give you answers, and we may decide that we need a follow-up appointment later in the week. Are you okay with that if we decide that at the end of the appointment? Most of them are going to say yes. And then I'm going to say, and then the 4th option is maybe you absolutely love everything that you see and you decide to list and go ahead and move forward today. Right? Are you okay with those 4 options? Everybody says yes. Everybody says yes. Now that we've gotten these 4 options on the table, now what happens if at the end of your appointment, someone says to you, you know what, we really need to think about it? What do you say?
Try to set up a second appointment.
Mm-hmm. Yep. How do you do that? So that's the right answer, but how do you do that?
Why don't we go ahead and set something up for the end of this week or the first of next week and present a time? How does Friday at 3 o'clock work for you?
Yep. Now let's role play for a second, Chris. You say that, and I'm the seller, and I say, no, I'm just not ready for that. Let me think about it. I'll call you later. What do I mean by that?
Really, you mean no, but you don't want to say it.
Yep. All right. Now, because, and I don't care how laid back you are, because you've already covered these, and you say, really, it sounds like maybe we probably need that second appointment to lock down the price or to lock down a better marketing strategy or whatever it is. And then they say, no, let us think about it. We'll call you later. Because you've laid these ground rules, this gives you the ability to say, I completely respect that. What it sounds like to me, Chris, is that you probably don't think that this is going to be a fit. And I told you that was perfectly fine in the beginning. You'd tell me if you didn't think it was a fit, right?
Yeah, it actually started at 1.
All right, hold on. Somebody needs to go on mute. Sorry. I'm not sure who it is. So you'd tell me if you didn't think it was a fit, right? Okay, and at that point, you might get a no. And I'm here to tell you that that's perfectly fine. 99% of everyone who says, let us think about it, they're not going to think about it. They've made their mind up. I'd rather know now and be able to move on with my life than hassle them for weeks and weeks and weeks and finally realize that they just blew me off and listed with someone else. Okay, so this gives you the ability when they push outside of these parameters to pull it back to either, do we need a second appointment, or are you trying to tell me no?
Bruce, real quick.
Yep.
What do you, give me an example of a second appointment. What are they missing?
Some of you will choose, and I use this a lot. I don't use it all the time. I like to play around on my listing appointments now. Some of you will choose to do a second appointment. Some of you are 1 appointment closers. Some of you are 2 appointment closers. So that second appointment would be, maybe you get to the house and you don't know how to price something. Maybe there's a repair that's needed that you need to get done. Maybe there's some extra marketing they're looking for that wasn't in your plan. It could be something that they're looking for that you weren't prepared to address on the spot.
Do you get the contract signed also before you leave, or what?
What I do in that case is I'll get a 1-page letter of intent signed. And it just says, hey, this isn't binding. We plan to use you. This just gives you the authorization to go and do X, Y, and Z for me. It's kind of like, you go to a car dealership and they give you that IOU at the end of the process. And it says, we owe you this, this, and this. So that's just my specific form that gets them emotionally committed to something from me and sets a follow-up appointment up. Okay, if they're not willing for that, I do set the second appointment. Even if they don't sign anything, I still set a second appointment. And I put it in my calendar right there in front of them so that they know that I'm planning on coming back out Thursday at 6. If they know I'm planning, then they're either going to call and tell me the truth after, which sometimes they call and tell me the truth. At least I get the truth, or they follow through with that appointment. It just forces people to make a decision, and they might not always make it with you face to face with them. It's really uncomfortable for someone to tell you no. A lot of people don't like it, but we want to force a yes or a no. That's what we're forcing. And a second appointment is at least a yes on the spot at the time that you're in front of them. It could be a no 10 minutes after you leave. So I've forced this before from people that honestly, I knew they were trying to say no. They just didn't have the guts to say no. I knew it. And I forced a second appointment, and they called 5 minutes later and they said, or texted, and they said, hey, we decided that we're going to go a different direction. I'm completely fine with that because I forced an answer. So get that second appointment. If they're not prepared to move forward today, get that second appointment, because it's going to shake out their real feelings, and it's going to shake those feelings out really, really fast. If they wanted to tell you no, they just didn't have the guts, at least they'll text you 5 minutes after you pull out of the driveway and tell you. And I'm okay with that. I want to win every appointment, but more so than winning every appointment, I at least want to know where I'm wasting my time and who I don't need to bother or go after anymore.
Bruce, one of the things that I found too on listing appointments, when you have the seller give you the tour of the property and you're noting problems that may come, I'll schedule a second appointment to come back to bring either, one of my vendor partners to come give us an estimate on pricing for a repair or something like that. And I found that sellers like that a lot, because then it just helps to eliminate surprises later on when a buyer does inspections. This may come up as an issue. So how about I, bring my whoever back on, in 2 days, so that we can get an estimate and know what to expect in advance. And they like that kind of stuff, or painting, or just even things that we need to do to get the property ready.
Yep, 100%. So what Yolana is describing is the 2-stage listing appointment. And that freaks some of you out. All right, if it freaks you out and you say, I'm never going to do a 2-step or 2-appointment close, that's fine. But there is very valid logic and a very valid argument behind what Yolana just said. I do it all the time. There are many appointments, especially if it's someone that I know or was referred to me, many appointments that I walk into and I tell them, hey, I'm not here to push a listing on you today. I did bring listing paperwork just in case you tell me to shut up. Let's just go ahead and get started. And I actually use those words. In case you tell me to shut up, let's go ahead and get started. Here's the listing paperwork. But I want you to know, no pressure. We're going to go through the house. We're going to tour it. I'm going to show you what I do. And then I'm going to leave and come up with a price. And we'll discuss that and finalize it on a second appointment later this week. Okay. So there is really valid reason for having 2 appointments. Some of you will choose not to do that. Some of you will choose to do it. That's up to you and your business. And if you want any kind of mentorship or coaching on that, we can talk about it all day long. But for the sake of this particular class, I want you guys, prior to sitting down and presenting your services, I want you guys laying the ground rules for what you expect to happen at the end of the appointment. And you all gave me about 5 different answers a little bit ago that were really good answers, and all answers that a seller can and will be tempted to give you. Let us think about it. We'll call you tomorrow. I mean, you guys gave me a bunch of answers there, and those answers, we want to avoid those because we know that it's just someone pushing out the decision process. They might feel like they're going to get pressured, and they don't want to be pressured, or maybe they want to tell you no. And I think we'd all agree that a fast no is better than a long drawn out no where we're sitting around wondering what's going on. So these are your 4 options that you give a seller before you sit down and go through that presentation. So we want to establish the expected appointment results. All right. At this point, what we want to do, and you guys are going to notice at the top of the screen that I'm saying discredit your competition. All right. What I'm not saying here, and I want everyone that is freaking out right now, what I'm not saying here is slam your competition. If you're a realtor, that's unethical. You can't do that. You can't slam your competition. You can't specifically address any individual person. Even if you know that someone is the worst agent ever, they're unethical, they're shady, they lie, whatever it is, you can't tell your client that. So I never address specific companies. I never address specific agents that I might be up against. What I do is I throw a blanket around all of my competing agents. And I just kind of make a general vague statement here to draw a comparison between myself and anyone else that they might be interviewing. And this is where I say, you know, if you've looked at any other firms or agencies, do you mind if I tell you the way that they typically operate and then tell you how I'm a little bit different? That's what everyone wants to know. So we're asking them a question that we know they're going to say yes to. Do you mind if I tell you about the way that agents and other real estate brokerages typically operate, and then tell you how I'm different? They're going to say yes. So what I say here is most agents come out, and this is their game plan. They have a game plan that I like to call the 3 Ps, right? And I've heard this a few other places before. I've used it for many years. Does anyone know what the 3 Ps are? Anybody? Nope. All right. So the 3 Ps. So typically most agents come out, their game plan is following the 3 P game plan. And what the 3 Ps are is they put a sign in your front yard. Okay. They put your property into the multiple listing service. And the 3rd P is they pray that they can somehow miraculously find a buyer. All right. So that's the 3 Ps that a large portion of agents use. And I don't do that. Now there's some other agents that are going to come out and they'll take one of 2 different approaches to showing you what they do. Right? They either take the approach of having absolutely no presentation at all, and they just show up and they say, "Hey, do you want to sign in the yard? Do you want to sign right here?" They're completely unprepared and they're unprofessional. Or you get the agents that kind of come in with the shock and awe approach, and they pull out a 300-page PDF or 300-page book. And by the time they're done rambling on about every little nuance and every little detail that they cover, you're falling asleep. Okay. I don't want to do any of that to you. So do you mind if I tell you my 4P approach to getting you the best price in the easiest process? Right. So this is the way that I do it. Talk about the 3 Ps. I talk about the agent that walks in, they're completely unprofessional and unprepared. That way, just in case someone either has interviewed an agent or is about to interview someone else that that comes in that's unprepared, they're going, you know, Bruce told me about this type of approach. This person's not prepared. They don't have anything. Or if somebody comes in with a really long listing presentation, about halfway through, they're going to go, Bruce told me about this person too. I'm really getting bored here. I don't need to know all these things. All right, so we're kind of cutting out the different approaches that any competition might do. And you're going to go through this really fast. Your delivery of kind of how you undercut your competitor shouldn't last more than about 2 minutes to go through the 3 Ps and the 2 different types of listing presentation. And this is where I want you to take your, if you have one, some of you are going to use a PowerPoint. Some of you are going to come up with your own book. Some of you already have your presentation. If your presentation's longer than about 20 pages, it's too long. So this is where I'd want you to take out a presentation. Anybody that wants to use something like this, I have a couple of people, including all the leads, that can put a listing booklet together like this for you. This is where you're going to take that book out. You're going to put it in the middle of the table and say, I'm going to be different. I am prepared. I want to show you the only things that really matter in your listing, but I'm not going to bore you to death. I'll go through this in about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Is that okay with you? Right. And they're going to agree. And then you're going to open your book up and you're going to say there's 4 Ps that I'm going to pay attention to. Now, in my listing book, I have a little summary at the front of it that lay out what those Ps are. And I'm just going to click through my slides really fast, and then I'm going to come back. So P number 1 is preparation. P number 2 is presentation. P number 3 is promotion. P number 4 is price. All right, so I show them that summary and I say, here are the only 4 things that really matter to your success as a home seller: preparation, presentation, promotion, and price. So let's talk about preparation here really quickly. Mr. Seller, preparation, this is your job. At the end of this appointment, if you decide that it's time for us to move forward with me as your listing agreement, as your listing agent, or I decide to move forward as your listing agent, I'm going to go through the house one more time with you, and I'm going to give you a list of things that you need to do to prepare your home for the market. This is your job. We're going to talk about decluttering and organizing. We're going to talk about staging and decorating. We're going to talk about how you can focus on your home's decor. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to add pop to your curb appeal so that you grab buyers' attention right out of the gate. Does that sound fair? Okay, what am I doing there with that question? Does that sound fair? What is that? Anybody?
You'll get an idea of if they're willing to do anything at all.
Yep, and it's a trial close. It's a trial close. So we're getting small little agreements from them through the process. Does that sound fair? And I'm going to use an opportunity to gather a small agreement at the end of each one of these points that I make. And then I flip over to the next page where I talk about presentation. Okay, so preparation, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, that's on you. Presentation. Okay, what's presentation mean? Well, number 1 is presentation. If preparation is your job, presentation is my job. I'm not sure why that happened. There's always some kind of PowerPoint problem that I have. So presentation is my job, and it really piggybacks on preparation. I can't start to present your home professionally until you've gotten your preparation done. Okay. My job, and this is where I say I give a job statement. All right, and I'm going to read you one here real quick. I never use this verbatim, so I just kind of wrote it down this morning as something that I might give. So a presentation, my job here is to take your preparation and amplify that presentation to make your home look better than any other home on the market. Okay, I'm going to do this with photos, floor plans, 3D or virtual tours, videos, drones, staging, all of the above. Does that make sense? So there's another kind of trial close question. Does that make sense? It gets a small yes. All right, so we want to have a job statement that is directly related to how we present, how we set up our presentation. Now, what we're not doing here is we are not making any what statements. We're not telling them the 89 steps to proper listing photography. We're not telling them the 42 different things that we do to get good floor plans. Everybody else does that. It's all fluff. It puts sellers to sleep. So we make like a 1 sentence or maybe 1 paragraph job statement that tells them what we cover with our presentation. Okay, and I call that the how I do that explanation. Okay, how I do that explanation. Right, and then we move on after I've given that little trial close. Does that make sense? You understand something like that? I want to get a yes. And then I say, now let's move on to the third P that we're going to talk about. And the third P is promotion. I want you to think about promotion like marketing. Promotion. This is, we need to focus here on what we do, not how we do it. So it's the same thing with the presentation. This is a what we do, not how we do it. So think of that the same thing here. Don't go into great detail. We're just touching on it to make sure that they understand that this is our job. They don't need to know all the details. This is also my responsibility. So now we've covered that preparation is your responsibility. Presentation is my responsibility. Promotion is also my responsibility. All right. My job statement and generic how I do that explanation, just you guys know, by the way, I put these slides together very, very recently. These should be combined. So really both of these presentation and promotion slides should be 3 bullet points because my job statement and the generic how I do that are kind of one and the same thing. So the way that I say this for promotion is my job is to get every single buyer that's either on the fence about buying a house in the area or actively looking an opportunity and create desire inside of them to come see your house. All right, how your house looks in person is going to either sell the house or sell them against the property. My job through promotion is to get as many people in here as possible. And the way that I do that is by making sure that every marketing medium available at my disposal is used. Everything from internet advertising to social media advertising to MLS marketing to sending it to brokers and my buyer list. All of those are on the table. Does that make sense? Now we've gotten, because that definitely does make sense, now we've gotten our third yes from the prospect, from the seller. We've gotten a third yes. And we say, and the last thing that we want to cover and agree on is the property's price. All right, if preparation is your job, promotion and presentation are my job, the price that we select is our job together. All right, now there are 3 general pricing strategies. And I want to give you those 3 pricing strategies and tell you how they impact you. Because after this, we're going to pick a price together. Does that sound fair? Now I've asked them, I've done another trial close and I've gotten another yes. Right. And first off, let me go back and tell you guys the 3 pricing strategies. Most of you know this, so I'll make it really fast. Pricing strategy number 1 is we identify what your house should be worth and we price it a little bit below in the hopes that we drive dozens of offers and we end up selling for far more than we would have if we priced it a little higher. Now, the risk of this is maybe our timing's not right and we only get our asking price, and then you're gonna wish that you'd priced a little bit higher. So there's a definite reward here, but there's a little bit of risk as well. Strategy number 2 is we could identify what the comps say that we should sell the house for, and we could price it right on the button. Okay, you're usually going to sell for the price that we think that it's going to sell for. If you price it at the comp value, you might not get multiple offers. Just be aware of that. But you're probably going to get that median price that we look at. And then the third pricing strategy is we look at the comps and we decide that maybe it's worth going 2 or 3% higher than what the comps say because it's a really hot market. Now, the risk here is if we price it too high, you might end up sitting on the market, and then people are going to wonder what's wrong with it, and you end up selling low. You could also get the price that you're asking for. So I just want you guys to be aware that pricing low has a high likelihood of getting multiple offers. Pricing on the button has a good chance of selling at the price that you're looking, but probably isn't going to get multiple offers. Pricing high could get you that high price, but it could also kick you in the butt if you sit on the market a little bit too long and then people think something's wrong with your house. Okay, so that's the way that I kind of explain it, but I let them know that they can pick at either of these strategies. And then I tell them, do you remember back in the very beginning when I told you that occasionally I tell someone, no, I don't think I can list your house? This is normally the reason. Sometimes someone decides that they want 5 or more percent more than I think I can get for the house. And I just can't do that. So if we're talking about pricing more than maybe 1 or 2% over comp value, I'll probably tell you that it's best if you go with another agent. Does that make sense? All right, so we're doing a takeaway. So we're doing a takeaway here. We're also, with that statement, we're also getting another yes, because most of them are going to say yes. All right, so we go over price is our job together. We briefly touch on the 3 pricing strategies, the pros and cons with each one of them. Make sure that this is brief. And then we tell them what kind of price makes us walk away from the listing and not agree to take it. All right, so they need to know that there's a little bit of risk if they go crazy here. And then we say, are you ready to talk about the price and make a decision? Normally they're going to say yes. Right. Now I'm going to give you something that's my opinion only here. The majority of these, I have empirical proof that they work. These statements work. The opinion that I have on pricing is going to make some of you really uncomfortable. Some of you are going to love it. I hate CMAs with a passion. I despise CMAs. I despise CMAs for the same reason that I don't like 100 slide listing presentations. It's too long. Nobody cares. There's fluff. How many people read the appraisal report, or how many people read the CMA? They don't do it. They're designed to make you look fancier than you really are. And they overwhelm consumers. Now, if you choose to continue using CMAs, you have my blessing. It's no problem. Don't ask me what my favorite CMA software is, because there is none. I simply print out the 3 to 6 comps that I think are most relevant to the property that we're talking about. And at this point, I pull my MLS sheets out. I've highlighted the differences. So I will take the MLS sheet and I'll highlight the square footage, garage, bedroom, bathroom differences. I'll just put a little highlight mark on there. And I put it in front of them and I say, so comp number 1 says this. I think that this is a plus, this is a minus. Comp number 2, and I just put single comps in front of them. And then at the end of giving them the comps, I say, so now it's decision time. This is on you. Which one of the 3 strategies makes the most sense to you? Which one of the 3 strategies makes the most sense to you? And because I've set it up where they're scared that I'm going to take something away from them, most of them pick the middle price strategy, and most of them accurately pick their price. If they don't accurately pick a price, let's say it's a $500,000 house and they say, I think we need to go 560. I'll kind of scratch my chin or scratch my head and go, okay, all right. Show me where you're getting that. Show me where you're getting that. And this is either where they admit that they don't have any logic behind it, or they start to make up some logic. And this is if I don't think that they're doing, if I don't think they're going to come off of it, I'll say, okay, this would be one of those instances where you could probably list with someone at 550. I don't think that I could list it there. Right? Just because someone lists it doesn't mean that they're going to sell it. So do you think that maybe we should adjust that price expectation a little bit? Or should we agree to part ways at this point? And I want you guys to be comfortable with that type of confrontation. Again, back to the beginning of this class, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't like it. But this type of confrontation, when you've properly set the expectations, is really easy. And it just takes a little bit of practice to kind of let someone know, okay, is this one of those prices that that you're stuck on and maybe we should agree to part ways? Or is that something you're willing to reconsider? Most people will be willing to reconsider and see your logic behind the price that you recommend. All right. So that's how you go through the bulk of your listing consultation. And I'm going to do it really fast for you guys here. I'm going to go back and pretend like I'm going through my booklet. And I'm basically just going to say, the majority of people that you may talk to about listing the house really focus on a 3P approach. A 3P listing approach means that they put your house in the multiple listing service. They put your property or put a sign on the property, and then they go home tonight and they pray that somehow miraculously they can find a buyer. Okay. And that approach really isn't consistent. I like to take a 4P approach, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Now, if you've interviewed other agents or if you're ever thinking about it, this is inevitably what you're going to hear. You're either going to have agents that come in completely unprepared, no presentation at all, and you kind of know that they probably haven't done this before. Or you're going to get that person that wants to come in with a shock and awe approach and take 2 hours to present this really long PowerPoint or book slide show to you. And it's just going to bore you to tears. And I'm going to fall kind of in between. I want to go through your steps to selling for top dollar, but I'm going to make it pretty quick. Is that fair? Yes. Okay. So then we move on. So I have really a 4P approach to your listing. The first P stands for preparation. That's your job. Okay. And by the way, not all these points are on my booklet, but preparation is your job. Essentially, what we want to do at the end of this appointment is take another pass through and list off some of the things that you can do to prepare your home for the market. It's going to include things like decluttering, organizing. It's going to include maybe some staging ideas or decoration ideas. We're going to focus on swapping out some decor to make your home really pop. And then last, we're going to talk about the curb appeal and how to make that powerful first impression. Does that make sense to you? There's our closing statement. Our next thing, we want to move on to presentation. So if preparation is your job, presentation is my responsibility. This really piggybacks on preparation. Once you've prepared the home for the market, then I come in with the presentation. The way that I do that is to essentially come in with a professional photographer, videographers, get floor plans, do everything possible to turn the amazing job you've done on presentation and make it look even better with our online exposure. Okay, does that sound good? Yes. So we get a yes statement. Then we say, now we move on to promotion. Promotion is really like marketing. And this is also my responsibility. So again, preparation's on you, presentation and promotion are on me. And essentially what I do is I take every single buyer that's in the market, and my goal is to get their eyes on your property. I even want the buyers that are sitting on the fence and don't even know that they're looking for a house to see your house and make a buying decision. And the way that I do that is through marketing and promotion. I basically put you on every social channel. I send your property to all the brokers in my area. I send your property my large buyer list. I have about 4,000 buyers in my database. And then I send your property out onto every single website that I can possibly get it onto. Okay, does that make sense? I get a yes, and then I move to price. So preparation's on you, promotion and presentation are on me. price is our job together. All right, so here are the three basic pricing strategies that we need to cover. We can either list a % or two higher than the comp value, knowing that it's a hot market. The risk of going a little bit over the comparable home value is that maybe you don't get it and you sit on the market for a couple of weeks and people think something's wrong with your house. You have to take less than you would have otherwise. Okay, so that's strategy number one. I've seen it work. I've seen it hurt people before too. So it's kind of your decision on whether you want to go with that. Strategy number two is to price it exactly at the comparable value. We'll go over that in just a minute. You have a high likelihood of getting a pretty fast offer. It may or may not get multiple offers and go higher. Okay. And then strategy number three is to price a % or two below the comparable values and run the high likelihood and probability of getting multiple offers, in which case you have a good chance of selling higher than you would have with the first two strategies. Now, the risk is that maybe you don't get multiple offers and you sell at that % or two less than you would have if we just priced it right in the middle. Does it make sense? So we get a yes statement, right? Now, let me tell you when I might walk away. All right, so back to this. When I might walk away is if we go over comps and, we you decide that you want to try to get 5% more than the market is showing us, in which case I'll help you kind of look at that. I'll certainly give you some advice, but I probably won't be willing to list it at that because I don't think I could sell it for more than a % or two higher than comp value in this market. Does that make sense to you? I get a yes. All right. All right, let's get into our pricing decision. Now I pull my comps out and I go one by one through the comps. So this whole thing really doesn't take more than about 10 minutes tops. You might take a little bit longer when you go through those closed listings, but the part where we go through our presentation, 10 minutes at most. And they're not bored at all at the end of that. Right. Now, before we get into choosing commission rates, anything like that, I'm going to ask the group here, this is outside of presentation mode. So asking the group, who has something similar to this that they do? Anybody have anything similar that they do? Sorry, I was trying to drag my screen over. Right. Any questions on those 4 Ps? Nope. All right. So what we want to do at this point, and if you guys do have any questions or comments, please jump in. So at this point, we want to talk to them about their decision options. Okay. So there's 4 final decisions that we can make here, right? We've already teased them up front. So remember we talked about our 4 possible decisions that we could make at this. Okay, so the first decision that we want to talk about is we want to decide on our relationship, and we'll do that here in a second. The next decision that we want to talk about is we want to choose the listing service that you're most comfortable with and that you think is going to help net you the most money. All right, I'm going to repeat this. I want you to write it down. We're going to choose the listing service that you're most comfortable with and not or, and you believe is going to net you the most money. You'll recognize why I do this here in a second. And then we're going to pick your marketing date, singular. We're going to pick your marketing date. All right. And last, we're going to choose that pricing strategy. So before we really dive into price and which kind of listing strategy you'd like, do you feel comfortable with this relationship? Would you like to move forward, or should we set a follow-up appointment? All right, somebody give me an objection. Jeff, you unmuted yourself. I don't hear anything though.
I mean, there's no really reason to object. I mean, you did everything very diligently, you know, I mean.
Yep. Give me one though.
We need to think about it. This is a big decision right now. We don't
Okay.
know if you're the right candidate.
Okay, perfect. So normally the add-on that you just gave me, we don't know if you're the right candidate. That's typically what they think. They don't vocalize. So normally it sounds like the first half of your statement. Hey, we need to think about it. Okay, I completely understand. So should we maybe just set a follow-up appointment for later this week on Thursday or Friday?
No, I think we really want to get through this right now. Why don't you just continue and we'll see if this is something that we would move forward with.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me, Jeff, like I probably haven't answered your questions. Most likely you're not comfortable moving forward with me as the listing agent. Is that fair?
I think you just want to see what other people are offering.
Okay. So
I want to compare.
So with those, with what other people are offering, what are you looking for? Are you kind of a little worried about the marketing, about price? I know we haven't talked about price yet, but what would you be looking for in the agent that you choose?
I think right now, we like what you just presented. I just don't know how pricey it's going to be.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we really haven't gone over that yet. We can go over that here in a second, or if you're not comfortable with the relationship, that's completely fine. So from the price standpoint, does that kind of mean that you're looking to net the most money, or what's more important to you about that?
I know the market's really hot. I think just getting a lot of interest in it and creating a bidding war,
Okay.
to drive the price up. And, I want to make sure that if we do select the right one, that it's going to close.
Yep. That's a fair concern. So what if I told you that I think that I have a plan that could pretty much guarantee to net you the most money in a very short amount of time? Would and by net you the most money, I don't mean sell for the highest price. I mean put the most in your pocket. Would you want to move forward today, or would you want a follow-up appointment if I could show you that plan?
No, absolutely. Let's move forward today.
Okay. All right, good. So let's go over that pricing and commission structure here real quick. All right. So guys, it's okay to push someone on whether they want to walk away. A lot of people, when you start pulling away from them and taking something away, they'll kind of fight for that relationship. And Jeff was using certain language there that only an agent would use. He's using some language that people often are thinking, but they don't vocalize. Not all the time, but most of the time, some of what Jeff was saying, they wouldn't vocalize. So if you think that they're thinking something, I want you to just go ahead and vocalize it for them and see if that's their concern. Now, I'm going to stop my share here real quick. We'll come back to our decision options in just a second. But this is what I'd like everyone to consider having at your disposal. So before we pick a price, we want to pick a listing plan. All right. And I think that that's probably not super clear. I wish I had a PDF that I could drop in. So I have a listing sheet. It's a listing menu with 4 different listing options in there. And the first listing option is the bronze listing option. So I have a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And it just has a checklist, a list of checked off items next to a service that I provide. And it's really, really kind of blurry. You guys have my apologies for it being so blurry. The bronze basically comes with a sign in the yard, MLS, professional photographer, posted on our broker's website, which we know, they don't know, is really going to get syndicated out on all the other platforms. And I have my listing fee on that bronze plan. And my listing fee on that bronze plan is less than what the majority of my competitors are going to charge for the same basic services. Okay. It's really easy. I kind of have this idea that if I'm just the typical agent out there, I don't really deserve 3% if I don't do anything except for throw a listing in the MLS and kind of wait on a call to come in. So personally, I priced that one at about 2.2% on my side. Your decision. If you guys are going to go with a menu, you could go higher, lower, you could go anywhere in between. The silver listing. This is where I start to add in language that talks about the about syndication onto national real estate websites. This is also weekly updates, strategy sessions multiple times a week. This is social media advertising. So I'm adding in some additional services. The gold plan comes with a guarantee. If you've gone through the probate foundations where I talk about USPs, this is where I actually put a guaranteed price and amount of days on market into that listing. Now, if I'm going to guarantee something, I'm usually going to charge more. So this is that plan. I'm generally going to get 3.5 to 4% on my side to have a guarantee included in the terms of the listing agreement. And then finally, I've got my platinum listing, and the platinum listing offers the kitchen sink. I'll send my packers in. I'll send movers out. I'll clean their house. I'll pay for their staging. I go all out, and I charge 10%. Okay. And alarm bells are going off in a lot of minds right now, and you guys are freaking out saying no one would ever take that. And I said the same thing until I presented it to my very first listing appointment.
Bruce, can I interrupt 1 second? Does that 10%, is that just on the listing side, or is that your total commission?
Personally, it's total on my side. It's total, not my side. Okay, so I'm getting 7 to 7.5% of that, but I'm also getting some upfront money there. So back in the day, and I don't follow this exact plan now, but back in the day, the first time I tried this, I was following the 80-20 rule. So the Pareto principle, which basically says 20% of people are going to want to go with the elite plan. Okay, it might not be 20%, but if you haven't read it, there's a great book called 80-20 Sales and Marketing. And so I decided to test it out after I read that book the first time. Amazing book. It's a purple book. I'm looking on my bookshelf. I think I might have lent it out. And I sat down with this old couple, and this is the classic story. You're going to think I'm making it up. It's the classic story of the guy in overalls that walks onto the car lot, and he's got manure on his boots, and he ends up buying the nicest car cash. So this was that scenario. I had a couple walk in, an older couple. He had overalls on with holes in it. You could tell he'd been out on the farm working. I presented the plan. And then I pointed, I was very unconfident. So when I showed them the plan, I put my finger on the plan that I thought that they were going to go with. And I had prejudged them that they were going to go with one of the cheaper plans. And so I was trying to subconsciously get them to take the lower option because I thought that that's all they'd be interested in. And forgive me, everyone, for the language, but I'm just going to say exactly what he said. He looked at his wife, he pulled his wallet out, and he said, "I told you this son of a bitch was expensive." Okay. And he shucks out on the table because I was asking for $1,000 up front in addition to the 10%. He shucks out 10 $100 bills onto the table and said, "Let's go ahead and get started. Can we start next week?" All right. So don't shy away from having a premium product. It's not that many people are going to take it, but you need a premium product. You need one. All right. So some of you are going to choose to have 2 options, some 3. I have 4. I don't care what you do, but I want you guys having 3 options. And then you're going to go through the options with people. You're just going to show it and say, which one of these plans do you think are going to net you the most money? Net. which one of these plans do you think has the highest probability of netting you the most money? And a lot of people are going to choose one of your middle plans. Occasionally someone will go low, occasionally someone will go high. So what I do when someone goes to the lowest plan is I say, hey, I completely understand. That's why I have it there. I don't fully believe that that plan is going to net you the most money. Would you agree to let me do my silver or my gold listing with you if I met you in the middle on price? And I realize some of you that have read Never Split the Difference are saying don't meet in the middle. That's just my way. I know that honestly, I'm going to give the higher level service anyway. So I'll usually say, would you let me go with the gold plan if I would split the difference on the price? And I've never had anyone say no. I've never listed anyone at the bronze plan, ever. They always bump up if I offer to give them the extra service at a price somewhere in the middle. All right. So that's how we present our options and present our listing plans. And if you want to go over and kind of create a menu, I've got a way that you can do that here in a little bit. So at this point, they've kind of selected the plan that they think is going to net them the most money. And now all we do is go over the price. So we're going to go back to our pricing strategy. And we're going to go through those comps and say, okay, now that we've kind of selected our plan, let's pick our pricing strategy. Which one of the 3 pricing strategies that we went over a minute ago, which one of those 3 pricing strategies do you think is best for you and your family? And I don't care which one of the pricing strategies they pick, honestly, as long as they stay inside of my parameters, 1 or 2% above, right on the nose, and then maybe 1 or 2% below. If they want to go even lower than that, great, not a problem. Most people don't, but if they did, I'm not going to fight. If they go too aggressive, I'm going to say, I just don't think even with my best plan that I'm going to get you that price. Should we kind of call it a day and you go interview somebody else? Or do you think that there's a little bit of room for us to get that price down a little bit? Most people will say, well, what do you think? Because a lot of times they just don't know what they're looking at. I deal with agents all the time that don't really know how to comp or price a house. So if a seller doesn't comp or price a house right, it's completely fine. If they try to go too high on price, they'll usually listen to you as an expert. They might have just made a mistake. All right. Anything from you guys? Any questions?
Bruce, do you touch on any of the contractual windows to close?
Sometimes, not as a part of my presentation.
Okay.
But I will touch on those the same way that we go on rabbit trails in these classes.
Okay.
Is sometimes a question is going to come up and I might go out of my way to explain how long I think it's going to take to close, how long I think it's going to get a buyer, that kind of thing. So
Okay.
I might go down that rabbit trail, but it's not part of the presentation.
All right.
Yep.
I have a question.
Okay.
How do you handle when the county courts limit the commission to 5 or 6%? How do you present a 10% to the client? Or how do you word it in the contract so that it shows the additional services? I mean, how do you bypass the 5-6% county limits?
On a probate, right?
Yes.
Yep. I don't. I'll tell them, look, this is what I would normally do. I'd like to give you some extra services. And then we'll list it at this percent. Just know that you're getting a deal on the extra services. This is a slightly modified version from what I do on a probate appointment. They're still comparable, but this specific approach that I taught today works best with owners that are owner occupy the property that they own, that they haven't inherited. Now, we still do basically the same thing on the probate appointment, but I'm not trying not trying to get them to pay a bunch of extra money, especially when the court won't let them. So if they want one of the higher services, I'll say, look, the court's not going to let me charge what I want. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to pack you up and move you. What I can do is I can connect you with my packing company, my moving company, my clean out crew, my landscaper, anything else. I'll make sure that they give you a great deal. Does that sound fair? All right. So the majority of them aren't going to take a 10% listing anyway. Hopefully that helped a little bit.
Yes, it did. You were obviously speaking towards a normal listing, not probate. And I had a probate question. So
Yep.
yes.
Good question. And it's certainly comparable, but I'm going to provide those services on the side. I'm probably not going to be paying for those. So I'll tell them, look, I'll get you those services at cost. You'll need to pay those separately out of your proceeds. The court allows that. They'll allow that to happen all day long. Okay. All right. What else do you guys have for me?
Could we possibly get a copy of your letter of intent?
Yeah. Yep. I will need to send it to you guys in a separate email with the recording, because I don't have it handy on this computer. I don't think. If I do, it'd take me a while to find it.
Bruce, do you ever share copies of your actual listing presentation
With who?
with us?
Yeah. Actually, you guys are going to get that.
Okay.
Avoiding the sales pitch, but I do want to tell you how you can get those things. So really, there's two different things that I can offer to anyone who wants it. So number one would be, we could sit down for 2 hours and basically put together your entire listing presentation process. I don't do any of the ordering or the printing. I have a couple of different people, including all the leads, that can put these books together for you nicely. But basically, if I was just a consultant and helped you set everything up for yourself, including your book design and everything, it'd take about 2 hours, and I would do that for $395. And then some people might want to do monthly coaching. There's going to be multiple people on this call that are saying, oh, now he's doing multiple coaching, because I've been so swamped the last couple of months trying to put kind of ISA training together that I haven't done any coaching for a while. But anyone that wants actual coaching, I would take this, which is $395, just kind of for the setting up of your presentation. If you wanted to make it monthly, it'd be $99 sign up, and then it'd be $495 a month for a few coaching sessions every month. And it would be focused on your real estate business, not exclusively listings. So it would be lead generation, it would be marketing, everything that your real estate business needs. And it's a little bit more geared toward real estate agents or brokers. If you're an investor, I'd probably lean more toward the initial 2 hours, mainly because my background is primarily in the agent space. But that is an option for you guys. And if you don't want to take that option, I can connect you directly with my print houses. And they can send you their kind of fill in the blank templates for these, and you could go put it together yourself. I don't really have a problem there. So my goal with this wasn't to sell a bunch of coaching. As a matter of fact, I have seen 4 or 5 people on this call. They're probably going to be pissed because I've been blowing you off on coaching, and it wasn't intentional. I didn't have any time, and I'm starting to open up a little bit right now. So if anyone does want coaching, you can either do a one-time like 2-hour session, or you can move into monthly coaching where we get a few hours every month. All right. And if you don't want either one of those, you just want connected with my designer. He already has a lot of the templates for me, and I could just get you directly connected with him, and you guys could design something on the side.
And you sent out the connection information in an email to everyone with those other two options, and then we
Yep.
can, okay,
100%.
perfect.
All right.
Hey, Bruce, do you have an 800 call capture number that you use?
No.
Okay.
I'm not against them. My business is primarily coaching and training now, so I'm not using one.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've used them before. There are a couple of different call capture systems that I've used. So one would be Dialogue Tech. Ring Central has a pretty good call capture system. It's a little expensive. Air Call is a dialer that we use that you could get extra phone numbers for like $6 a month. They're a really good system. There's 5 or 6 that I could kind of point to. I'm
Okay.
not really using any of them personally though.
Okay.
All right. What else? Questions. Am I still sharing my screen? I don't think I am.
Yes, you are.
I am? Okay. Where's my screen stop? All right. I'm going to go ahead and pause it. I'll take